Who's that coming down the track?
Who's that coming down the track?
It's a mean machine in red and black.
Mean machine in red and black.
Ain't nothing finer in the land
Ain't nothing finer in the land
than the drunk obnoxious Georgia band.
than a drunk obnoxious Georgia band.
Go, go!
What's up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. As always, you can find us on Millions and as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Tonight, we are talking to Sean from the Horn Takes podcast. I said that correct.
Sir.
All right. About the big matchup in Austin this weekend between Texas and Georgia. But before we get to all that, how y'all been?
I've been doing great, man. I got a little cold I'm fighting, but I'm getting ready for the weekend. Ready to get down to Austin, see a good football game this weekend. I know you guys, I've been watching a little of y'all stuff. I know y'all like to drink, so I brought a little beer, a little Dos Equis. So I'm ready to hang out with you guys. Cheers.
Cheers. Love it. I was talking before we got on here. I was doing yard work when I got home from work. Borrowed some hedge trimmers and a pole saw from one of my coworkers. So I was out in the yard doing shit for like 2.5, 3 hours. And my wife brought me home a 6-pack of Tall Boy PBR. So I'm
Hell yeah.
I'm good. What's going on, Mike?
Yeah, hang on to her.
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection pooped out for a second, but I mean, I'm good. I just got some water. Today I'll be making up for it on Saturday, win, lose, or however it goes. I'll be making up for it on Saturday.
There we go. I'll actually be at the Georgia Southern game before the Texas Georgia game. So I'm hoping. Pretty sure they sell beer.
They do. They got Bud Light stuff all over the stadium. I was looking at that.
All right.
Before.
So I will not be sober at kickoff. That's always good.
Hell yeah.
All right. Y'all ready to get into some Texas talk?
Let's do it.
Yep.
All right. So Texas is obviously one of, if not the best team in college football this season. Is there anything about this team that is not as good as you expected it to be?
To me, I think, there's not a lot to look at this team and say, they're not good or, there's not a lot of weaknesses on this team. There's not a lot of stuff you look at this team and say to yourself, I wish they could do X better. But I think if I had something, I really expected the running game to be a little more explosive this season. Even when we heard that C.J. Baxter, the starting running back, was going to be out, he hurt his knee in fall camp. You look at it, this Texas team has one of the better offensive lines in the country. You could argue and debate all you want about who's the best, but they're certainly in that conversation. You got a guy like Jaden Blue who's coming back, one of the fastest clocked players in the country last season. He got loose a few times late in the season last year, and it just really hasn't materialized. Like all that big play ability, just for whatever reason, he hasn't been able to find that much clean air to get in and get down the field. What we've seen in the last couple of games, though, is Trey Wisner. He's been able to step up and come in when Jaden Blue had some fumble issues against Mississippi State. And I believe he didn't get the start against Oklahoma, but he played pretty significant amount in the Oklahoma game. In the last couple of weeks, he's rattled off 3, 1 for 36, 1 for 38, and 1 for 44. So we're starting to see some running back big plays. And I think that's kind of the one thing, if you look at this team offensively, that just hasn't happened yet. So it'll be interesting to see Saturday night and on through the rest of the season if the running back room can continue to find some daylight and get some big chunk plays.
How's the home field advantage at DKR? Like, you don't hear it mentioned nationally. It's like a top tier environment, but I mean, if you go back to like the 2019 game against LSU, Joe Burrow and that whole run that they had, place is a fucking madhouse. So can you speak to that a little bit for anybody that may be going out to, or hopefully is already there in Austin?
Yeah, I think the answer is it kind of depends. I think if you went to one of the games, ULM or UTSA, Colorado State earlier in the season, I still think it's a pretty good environment. The stadium was packed for all 3 of those games. The fans were in it at least till halftime, and I think this is probably the case with a lot of schools that are known for a good environment. Some games you just don't get excited about as much as you do as others. I can tell you that for this one, A game against number 5, a game against a big name like Georgia. Daryl K. Royal is going to be rocking. It's going to be really exciting. I've been a season ticket holder since the early 2000s there, and back in the Mac Brown era, even when they were really good, they played a lot of pretty good matchups at home. You had Ohio State in 2006. In that 2008 season, they played a really highly ranked Oklahoma State team at home, a really highly ranked Missouri team at home, both top 10 teams. And the environment was okay, but honestly, in the last few years with Chris Del Conte taking over as the athletic director, and he's made just a ton of changes to the game day experience. He's got the fans closer to the stadium before the game starts. I don't know if you guys know this about Austin, but the campus there is really spread out. There's not a lot of centralized tailgating, or there didn't used to be. And what he's done lately is he's got all these companies that come in, set up tents for the tailgating, but then there's like a whole midway with carnival rides and stuff like that for kids. There's a whole just tons of beer and food trucks right there by the stadium. So what it does is it really gets everybody close to the stadium, really sauced up before they actually go into the game. So the environment's a lot better. I think Bama in 2022 was probably the craziest environment for a game I've ever been to. I'm sure you guys heard the Will Anderson quote where he talked about this being, the loudest place he's ever played. And so I think in the right circumstances, it's really wild. Is it always going to be wild? Absolutely not. It's not Autzen Stadium where those people just go nuts to play anybody. It's not Death Valley where they go nuts to play anybody. But I think it's really good. And I'll say this: we went to the Big House in September to watch Texas and Michigan play. And I've heard a ton about the Big House, how intimidating it is, how loud it is. I thought it was kind of weak, just to be perfectly honest. And I don't think it had much to do with the score at the time. It just wasn't. I was kind of let down, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a great stadium. It's a cool historic place. I'm absolutely glad that I got to go do that. But I just expected it to be a lot more raucous with 100 and what does it hold 107, 108,000 or something like.
Yeah, like 111. So I grew up there. I went to a lot of Michigan games before I went to UGA, and that's always kind of been the MO for Michigan. There's a lot of old fans, like Georgia fans like to call the older people here like tea and crumpet crowd. It's the same thing up in Michigan. Like the students can get a little bit rowdy, but like outside of that, it's just a lot of old people that don't like to, hear loud noises at Michigan. Hopefully, they're dying off. Same thing with Georgia, although we've had our issues this year with some of the fans not sticking
Except
around.
it was freshman frat guys and sorority girls that keep leaving in the second quarter in Athens right now.
It should be loud as fuck for Auburn, and it wasn't.
Really?
But that's another thing.
Yeah, no, the stadium was about 60% capacity at halftime because it was
Really?
homecoming, so all the freshmen Greek life kids were there with their parents, and they got hot and just left.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can get pretty rough, man. That Alabama game it stuck out to me so much in 2022. It was 11 a.m. kick, but it was really, really hot already at 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And in Texas, it's just, I mean, hell, the Red River Shootout last weekend was 95 degrees in freaking October. So, I, it can definitely dampen the spirits a little bit. But I think with this one being a night game and such a big team coming in, just honestly, man, Georgia's kind of been like the gold standard of college football for like at least last several years for sure. I mean, they won 2 national championships in the last 3 years. A lot of respect for the Georgia football team, a lot of respect for the Georgia football program. I think it's going to be a great game to be at, and I think the atmosphere is going to be outstanding.
For sure,
And
for sure.
just a note for anybody that hasn't been to Austin but has been to Athens or vice versa, 6th Street is just about as far from the stadium as downtown is. So mostly downhill walk, probably half to 3/4 of a mile, would you say?
I wouldn't want to I mean, it's pretty far, but they usually have pedicabs and Ubers and all kinds. You can
Yeah.
get on one of those pedicabs, pay them $20, they'll wheel you over there, or get on an Uber. It's not too bad. I mean, you could walk too if you really wanted to get down to 6th Street. But yeah, it is downtown, and it's not right next to the stadium. So Austin's kind of one of those. I don't really consider Austin a college town. I mean, there's just a big ass college right in the middle of Austin. You go to like I'd never been to Tuscaloosa till we went last year, and that's just a small little place, that just happens to have the University of Alabama. And it's a lot different in Austin, so there really isn't like the drag right next to the university like you get at a lot of these college towns.
It's the same
Yeah,
thing with Atlanta. Atlanta's not a college town. I mean, they love college football, but it's definitely not a college town.
Sure.
yeah. We went to the F1 race in 2022. Um, and the shuttle we took left from that giant like botanical gardens park that's right
Hmm.
next to campus.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time over there and downtown, and as a tourist, you're going to Sixth Street. It's what you do.
Yeah, it's pretty wild time. Me and my wife used to go. We kind of quit going to Sixth Street and hanging out all night when we got close to our 40s, man. And so now we just we're in bed by the time Sixth Street happens.
Yeah, I love Austin. I say it all the time. If I leave Savannah, it's probably going somewhere close to Austin. And the no income tax thing it's a real good sell.
Yeah, it's a plus.
For sure.
All right, so getting into the team, just put some offensive numbers out there because that's what gets most of the attention. They're seventh in total offense, seventh in scoring offense, 11th in passing, 40th in rushing, 13th in third down conversion, and 50th in red zone. Do you think the dip in rushing and red zone is because of the injuries to the running back room?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you still have that offensive line that's really solid at worst and really outstanding to probably elite at best. You got running backs. I mean, they've had a stable of running backs. You got guys like Jaden Blue, Trey Wisner, Jarrett Gibson, the freshman out of Florida. He's played in limited. You know, he hadn't had a ton of action this year, but he's played really well when he's been in there. He's a guy that to me, when I first started kind of watching his film, I thought to myself, man, this dude's the number one running back recruit in the country. I just didn't see it. But when I saw him on a field at Texas, it like flashed. And that dude, he has got great lateral quick. He's probably the closest thing to me to Bijan Robinson. And he ain't Bijan Robinson, but he's probably the closest lateral guy I've seen to Bijan Robinson since Bijan Robinson at Texas. And then really, the 50th in the red zone sounds bad, but they're 29 of 33 with 26 touchdowns in the red zone. So I think to me, it's more about maybe a couple missed kicks, probably some failed fourth down conversion attempts late in games down in that end of the field, and then probably some penalties. This has been a problem for the Texas offensive line a little bit this season. Is just kind of losing focus, having some procedure penalties. So I'm sure at some point this season they've penaltied themselves out of the red zone, and that still counts as a red zone opportunity. So I think the running game's just fine. It's not flashy. Like we said, it's not creating these massively big plays like it maybe did a little bit last year, but it is really effective. I mean, they're averaging almost I don't know exactly what it is, but it's close to 200 yards a game on the ground, and
Yeah.
their average per carry is north of 5. So I mean, it's definitely effective.
Texas has done a good job at protecting the quarterback this year, only allowing 6 sacks on the season against some of the best defenses at getting at the quarterback. You know, Michigan comes to mind with that, even though they don't have an offense at all. Defense is still legit. Is there any weaknesses with the O line, or are they just elite across the board?
And I think when you look at this Texas offensive line, you have to look really hard at that starting five to find a whole lot of weaknesses. I mean, they're really big, they're really athletic. They certainly have a mean streak in them that we haven't seen at Texas in a long time. And then I think you look at the continuity. Four of those guys have been playing together. This is their second season together. Three of them have this is their third season together. And then the new guy, Cam Williams, there's a lot of people now in mock drafts putting him in the first round. So he's obviously a talented guy. He just hasn't played with those guys. He had to wait his turn behind other people. So I don't think there's really that many weaknesses. I mentioned it before. I think if you do have to point to something, it's kind of that they lose focus sometimes. They give up, some stupid little procedure penalties. They didn't do it at all last week against Oklahoma, but they every single game ahead of that, there's been at least a couple. So like play wise though, their strength, their ability, their cohesiveness, there's not a lot. That doesn't mean they can't get beat. But that's as solid as a unit as you're going to see in college football for sure.
Has there been any noticeable change or drop off in the wide receiver play after losing all those great players to the NFL?
I don't think so. This might be sacrilege. I mean, obviously the individual numbers have dropped. Last year you had Worthy, you had Adonai Mitchell. Those were your two big guys. on the outside there. So definitely the individual numbers have dropped, but I think as a whole, this wide receiver room is just better than it was last year. Check. I mean, how many wide receiver rooms do you know of in college football where there's 6 guys that have long catches of 40 yards or more? It ain't many, if any. And the other thing I really like about this room is they're so versatile. They can all take the top off the defense. Usually you have one or two guys that are a threat to get downfield consistently. Every single one of these guys can. They all can get involved in the screen game close to the line of scrimmage. They can all get involved in the running game with reverses and end arounds and all those good things. And then I think you look at guys like DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo, they are outstanding blockers on the outside. They really do a good job in the run game on the edge and in the screen game on the edge. So as a whole, I feel like this is a much more talented group than they've ever had ever at the University of Texas.
Mm-hmm. The offense has obviously done extremely well with both guys at quarterback, Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. With Quinn's relative struggles last week against OU, are there any realistic rumblings of a quarterback controversy right now?
No, there's a saying in Longhorn Nation that the backup QB is the most popular, and it's been like that since Chris Sims and Major Applewhite back in the early 2000s. But honestly, you're going to see that every once in a while. There's always going to be somebody that thinks Arch Manning is better and that Quinn Ewers shouldn't play, and they just want to pick things apart about it. But as a whole, I feel like this fan base is really firmly behind Quinn Ewers. They realize it's his team, and they believe in Quinn Ewers. Like I think all Texas Longhorn fans in general think Quinn Ewers can lead this team to a national championship. And on the other side, you look at Arch Manning. I think we're just really, really excited to have a guy that talented that's just kind of sitting there waiting for his turn. Texas has kind of been in like this doldrum of not having quality QB play for such a long time. So it's exciting to see Sark be able to bring in all these talented guys, get some of them to stay, and wait their turn. I think that's invaluable, and I think that's QB. Everybody talks about it's the most important position on the field to the offense. And if you don't have good QB play, it's just really hard to win the college football game. So I think it's imperative that he continues to do that, and I think he's going to be able to do. I mean, what he's going to do is he's going to probably put Quinn Ewers in the first 2 rounds. Right now, I see that he's dropped out of the first round, but he could easily play his way back into that. And then in a couple more years, Arch Manning's going to go in the first round probably. And then you're looking at a guy that he's just a quarterback whisperer, and guys want to go play for him. So I think long term, barring any kind of weird disasters, I think Texas is pretty well set up, from a quarterback perspective. And I really like Trey Owens. Nobody really knows about that kid. He's the third string guy right now at Texas, and he's much bigger than these other two. He's like 6'5", 245 pounds, 235
Golly.
pounds.
Yeah.
And man, he can sling it. He got his 4-star kind of late in the process, and he committed really early in the process as a 3-star. But he can toss the ball like really well. If y'all get a chance, like go check out the spring game. It's probably on replay on ESPN Plus or something like that. He can toss the pill. So I like him, and I think he'll probably be to me like one of those guys that ends up transferring because he just realizes like I'm never going to get a shot to start here, and he's going to go do really well somewhere.
Hmm.
All right, so I think we're going to move over to the defensive side of the ball. I feel like the defense nationally doesn't get near as much hype, obviously, with Sark and Quinn Ewers and Arch and all those guys. But they deserve a ton of love of what they've been able to do this year. They're first in total defense, first in scoring defense, 23rd in rushing defense, second in passing yards allowed, seventh and third down conversion, and second in red zone defense. I mean, that elite numbers across the board. So, in your opinion, are these numbers inflated from the level of play that Texas has seen this season? I say that because I had 3 group of 5 teams with a combined record of 10-8. At this point, we know Michigan can't throw a forward pass. And then Mississippi State, true freshman quarterback making his first start, and then as much as it probably made Texas fans happy, Oklahoma was playing with the ghost of skill position players last week. So is that a concern?
I honestly, I'm really not that concerned about it. I think I think now, obviously, it probably has played into it. If you play like the worst teams in the country offensively, you're probably going to have good numbers, even if you're not that good. But I think what's interesting about this Texas defense, and I think probably why people might be selling it a little short and not really talking about it. If you've watched them play and like really consistently, what you're going to see is a group of guys that is really dynamic and has a lot of playmakers at all three levels of the defense. And then you're going to see that they play a bunch of different guys. People talk about who's starting, why isn't this guy starting? On the Texas defense, it like doesn't matter. Almost everybody gets the same amount of snaps. They bring backups in at every level that can come in and make plays. They're versatile players. They can move around in different spots. So it really makes it easy for PK, the defensive coordinator at Texas, to just really be able to kind of dial up all these weird looks and weird pressures, which he doesn't typically bring a lot of weird pressures. He's pretty straightforward as far as that goes. We blitz probably less than any team in the country, but we don't have to. We get just so much pressure, and it comes from multiple guys. So I think a defense that through 6 games no one has even come close to posing any sort of consistent challenge to. I think you got to say, at the very least, that's a really good group of players. And yeah, maybe they haven't played, the best offensive teams in the country. But I think to perform that way week in and week out really kind of proves that they're a pretty good unit. Now, are they perfect? Absolutely not. Are they unbeatable? Nope. I think this Georgia game is going to be a really great barometer for this Texas defense. That offense at Georgia, really good offensive line. They got big humans, just like Texas has big humans. They got one of the best passers in the conference, maybe the country. And then there's lots of speed all over the field for him to get the ball to. So I mean, I think you look at these two rosters and take depth aside. I mean, you're kind of looking at the same two types of teams when you look at these rosters. So I think this Georgia game could be a really good barometer for actually how good this defense is.
Mhm. Before the season, some people were concerned about the play of the defensive line with losing Coach Bo Davis and a few guys to the NFL, but obviously they played really well this year so far. On top of a top 25 rushing defense, they're averaging 3.17 sacks per game. So, with all that said, how has this group maintained such a high level of play with those factors?
And I think you just kind of got to look at a couple guys that have been there a while. Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins, those are guys that have been around at the University of Texas for a while, and they've been contributing in the middle there for a long time. So the starters, those are guys that haven't ever been starters before at the University of Texas, but they're guys that have played a whole lot of football and experience at those defensive line positions is a really big deal. So even though this is their first year to step in there and be the starters, like don't forget last year, Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy had never started at the University of Texas. They were taking their first starting reps, but they had a lot of experience to back up what you got there. So Broughton and Collins have been invaluable in the middle there. I think they've gotten really solid play out of their transfers that they brought in last season. Norton, Savea, and Lole in particular. They've come in and there's almost, I don't want to say there's no drop off, but those guys come in. There's not a real huge drop off in play at all. All five of those guys really solid there in the middle. And then you talk about, the sacks. One of the areas where Steve Sarkisian's program has developed really slowly, in my opinion, is on the edge. We just haven't had it, and we haven't had it till this season. But now you're looking at a guy like Barron Sorrell that's a 3-year starter. You bring in Trey Moore from UTSA, who led I don't know what he led his conference in sacks last year with 14, and he hasn't even tallied a sack this year, but he just creates an immense amount of pressure on the quarterback. You got a healthy Ethan Burke. He led Texas in sacks last year with 5.5, even though he missed 2 games because of surgery, 2 other games limping around trying to not have surgery. So he didn't even play a full season last year. Not great numbers with 5.5 sacks, but certainly led the team. And now you got Colin Simmons, the freshman, whose reps are going up, and we're starting to see the impact he can make on a game coming off the edge. And so there's just a lot of talent there and just a lot of experience in the right places. You look at Colin Simmons; he's a guy that was really raw at Duncanville High School, but just crazy athletic. And you put him out on the field as a freshman in the college game, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just running around trying to make tackles. He's trying to get after the quarterback in pass situations. he's been not great against the run this year, just because he's never had to be. He's never had to be in the high school game. He could just overpower people. Last week against Oklahoma was the best game he's had in run fit all season. So I think you can see that progression. And obviously he can get after the quarterback. So, you know, they've just been able to bring guys in, keep them in the program, and develop them over the course of the last 3 years. And I think, you always talk about stacking talent. That's the number one key. And then you got to keep those guys, and that's becoming harder and harder with NIL and the transfer portal and all that stuff. But if you can keep them, then you got to develop them. And Steve Sarkisian and his staff have done a really outstanding job developing these guys.
So, do you have any concern about the secondary being relatively untested? But what we talked about a minute ago going into this game.
I got to tell you, I'm concerned about a lot of stuff going into this game. It, I, I, I don't know, man. I'm probably like one of those PTSD guys that kind of look at things and just maybe worry a little more than I should worry about stuff.
Same.
But look, I mean, this we're talking about Georgia. It's still Georgia. I don't care if they went and lost to Alabama. I don't care if they played a tight game with Kentucky. We've seen Georgia. We've seen a lot of these really dominant SEC schools. They almost always have one game a year where everybody wakes up on Sunday that doesn't pay attention and goes, "What the hell happened? Like, how did they play this team so close? They must suck." And they never do. They always figure out a way to get it pulled back together, and they go and kick everybody else's ass. So you got the talent, you got the coaching. Like I said earlier, I think Georgia's the gold standard of college football in the last several years. So yeah, I'm worried about a lot of stuff, but I think Beck and those wide receivers. I know it's not a deep room because of all the off the field shit, but it's a talented room, and so I think that matchup between Beck and those guys in the Texas secondary is going to be a really interesting one. And I think if the Georgia offensive line can buy Beck some consistent time, I think they're capable of hitting some plays down the field. And I think that they might be able to hurt Texas in some area. I think this is going to be a slugfest. Like I don't really see this game being a game where either one of these teams comes in and controls the game the entire time. I think they're just too talented on both sides of the field for that. But I will tell you this about the Texas secondary. You're right. It really hasn't been tested that much, but you can watch them and tell they're just so much better than they were last year. They're in position. They don't get confused. We gave up so many touchdowns last year because we just weren't covering the right guy, or we just let somebody run down the field for no reason because they were confused, didn't know what was going on. So I think they're improved. We'll obviously get to see how improved they are this Saturday night.
It sounds a lot like our secondary this year. So being confused, not being in the right spot. So shit. Okay. Uh, what would you say is the biggest weakness that Texas has at this point in the season?
That's tough. I think when this team is focused and you can tell they've had a good preparation, a good week of practice. I just don't think they have a lot. I think offensively they can get a little careless with the ball. We've seen Quinn Ewers turn the ball over early in the Red River Shootout this year. We saw Jaden Blue a couple weeks ago against Mississippi State put the ball on the carpet a couple times. Back before that, we saw Arch Manning come in and throw a couple of pretty bad picks. Maybe just one bad pick. The other one probably catchable ball that just didn't get caught. So I think they can get a little careless with the ball offensively. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they can get like the run defense can get a little leaky. Sometimes they misfit. They don't play in the gap they should be playing in. And so, we've seen some teams that probably shouldn't be able to get 8, 9, 10, 12 yards of carry, figure out a way to do that a couple times during the game. And my concern with that is, you look at a team like Georgia or any of these SEC schools, there's a lot of speed in those backfields. So a little 10-yard run can turn into a 65-yard run into the house really quick. So I think it's really important for Texas to be sound in the run fit. And then again, I think up until last week, that offensive line has had some false start penalties in each game. So I think that's a you never want to start a drive 1st and 15 or go into a drive 2nd and 13 because you got a false start. So uh, play wise, there's just not a lot.
So, what are you most confident in Texas doing well this weekend?
Man, I think the thing that I'm most confident about in this team is I think they're going to go out there, they're going to play hard for each other, and they're going to play to the standard that is Texas football now. Whatever that standard is, whatever Sark has decided the standard is, they're going to go do that. And I really, man, I love what Sark has done from a culture perspective at this University of Texas football program. And I love what he has to say when people ask him about his opponents. He's always very respectful. He's not trying to downplay any opponent, but he always talks about it's not what the other team does, it's what we do. And I really feel like that this Texas team is bought into that. And I think, with Georgia coming in ranked number 5, it's an opportunity for Texas to kind of take that next step as a program and really kind of show the world that, yeah, Alabama last year wasn't a fluke, man. We can keep doing this. We can keep beating these sort of, blue blood elite type teams. I think they're going to be prepared. I think they're going to be focused. If you're talking about like a more gameplay related type answer there, I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Carson Beck. They're one of the best in the country sacking the quarterback. And I think just sacks alone only tells like half the story. They are like absolutely relentless in pass rush. I mean, there have been very few times this year where quarterbacks have been able to drop back and just stand there. And so I think Carson Beck is going to see a pass rush that not maybe one that he's never seen before, but I think it's going to be one he hasn't seen to this point in this season.
All right, so last thing we like to do on these interviews is have you pick some games. We're going to give you the line. We're going to give you the over-under, but we're just asking for a straight-up pick. First one, Miami going to Louisville. Miami 4.5-point favorite, over-under 61.
Yeah, I'm not overly impressed with Miami. I don't think at this point, like they're close to getting me. They're close to me thinking to myself, like, yeah, they're legit. And I think they're really good. I think Louisville is dog piss. Like I think Miami's probably going to go up there and just run them out of their own stadium. So I'll take Miami and the points on that one.
All right, next game. We got Alabama going to Neyland Stadium playing Tennessee. Alabama 3-point favorite, over-under 56.5.
Yeah, so this one, so I do a deal called Trace Ocher games every week where I pick 3 other games besides the Texas game. And I think I'm like 16-2 this year. And I just do heads up. I don't do any kind of line play, but I think I'm going to have to because it's getting too easy. But this was one of my games this week. And I think this is an interesting one because you've seen the Alabama offense, or excuse me, the Alabama defense has kind of struggled the last few weeks. And then you've seen the Tennessee offense struggle basically since SEC play. They're not the same looking offense that they were in the regular season or the out of conference schedule. So it's going to
What?
be
They're not the
interesting.
same as when they're going for onside kicks up 50 points against UL
Yeah, and
Monroe and,
they're playing like Tennessee State and stuff like
yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
but I think that's kind of the interesting, to me, that's like going to be the interesting storyline in this game. Which one of those things cracks? Does the Alabama defense get back to playing defense like they did against Wisconsin earlier in the year? Or does that Tennessee offense catch fire again? Does Nico like just kind of let it all hang and go get the ball down the field? Man, I know this one's in Rocky Top. If I'm looking at this game, Nico's a freshman. I think he's a freshman. It's his first year to start
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, as a redshirt freshman, yeah.
Right. So I just think Jalen Milrow with his legs, with his ability to get the ball down the field after he's kind of scrambled and got himself some time, I think that's going to be big in this game. I'll take Alabama. And I don't remember the score I picked, but I think it was more than 3, so I'll take the points too.
All right, last game, obviously the one we've been talking about all night. Georgia going to Austin playing the Texas Longhorns. Texas 3.5-point favorite, over under 56.
That line moved to 5 now, right?
Did it?
Shit, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, just
I'd
this
probably
afternoon.
still bet Texas.
Yeah, that's a pretty big number. I'm not sure. I'm not going to give you guys my score prediction because I haven't done mine yet on the show. But what I will say is I think the first half of this game is kind of one of those feel it out, back and forth kind of deals. Maybe not a lot of points scored, a close game at halftime. But I just feel like if I just feel like that Texas depth is just going to be too much in the long run for Georgia. I know Georgia does have good depth, but I think I don't think I've ever seen a college football team as deep as this Texas team, just everywhere. So I think I'm going to give the nod to Texas. I don't know if I'd be willing to take 5 points. I might take 3.5, but I'll definitely say Texas straight up, and they'll kind of pull away a little bit. It won't be by a lot. It's not going to be this game. Like I said, I don't think this game is a blowout. I don't think anybody's controlling this game from start to finish or anything like that. So I think it'll be pretty close, but I think Texas gets it done.
All right. Is there anything else you want to hit on before we get out of here?
No, man, you guys can just check us out on TikTok, YouTube, X, at Horn Takes. We're on Twitter quite a bit. We're on TikTok a lot. I got a pretty fair amount of followers over on TikTok. That's kind of where I started doing this. And then I got a YouTube channel as well where we put up episodes. I do about 5 episodes a week during football season. We also cover Texas baseball if you guys like baseball. So we're excited about Jim Schlossnagle being here. We're excited about the recruiting classes that he's put together because they're starting to get pretty phenomenal. So yeah, man, check us out on the line. We're on all the podcast places, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff, man. And we just like to talk sports and have a good time. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, absolutely. We learned quite a bit. We're going to close up on some things, but we appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Absolutely. You guys have a good night. Thanks.
You
You
too.
too. Appreciate it.
All right. We want to thank Sean again for coming on and talking to us tonight. I know I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I feel somehow less confident after that
I
than
I was
before.
yeah, I was gonna say that normally if we're have some confidence going into these things, we'll talk to somebody, especially Alabama specifically, and we're like, well, fuck, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think either of us are that confident going into it. Nothing that he said made me feel any better about Georgia's chances. I mean, I'm optimistic. I mean, you and Caleb will talk more about it the next one, but man,
I'm not optimistic whatsoever, actually. Like, I legitimately, if the line is 5 or 5.5 or whatever, if I bet on Georgia games, I'd put money on Texas. Like,
yeah,
my biggest, and I'll get way deeper into this. My issue is if the secondary had shown me outside of the Clemson game that they could stop an offense that knows how to make a forward pass, I'd have confidence.
yeah,
But that Clemson game was the only game where they've stopped an offense that throws forward passes. And even in the second half of that game, they kind of sucked at it. Clemson just
yeah,
wouldn't keep throwing the ball.
right.
So,
Yeah. You know what? I think the pessimist in me is just getting ready. I don't know, hedging. So in case Georgia loses, it's not gonna be the end of the world, and I'm gonna go mute for a few days. But we'll see how it goes.
yeah, that's probably also why I have, just convinced myself that there's not even a chance in the world Georgia wins that game. So I
Yeah,
won't
because
be
and
upset if they
it's gonna be
do.
so sweet. Yeah, if they win, it's gonna be sweet. But if not, then
Yeah, like
prepare
if they
myself.
win, you might catch me wearing a jersey to work on Monday. Like I don't know. Might get a little wild. Might be like after Georgia won that national championship in 2021. I'm, red and black everything to work the entire week, but not feeling good right now.
No, it's funny. Today at school it was a Unity Day, so they wanted us to wear orange. So naturally, I said, "Fuck that! I don't want any orange whatsoever." So I got I Connor would be proud of me. He would think it's all Michigan stuff. I got the Georgia hoodie, the Georgia like player issued shorts, and then the fucking Georgia uh Air Maxes or whatever. So
There you go.
I'm like, yeah, I told them, nah, they're not a chance. I don't own like anything with a shred of orange on it. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
start for one day a year. No,
Yeah,
not this.
I have this thing of starting on Friday, I can't wear any color that the other team wears. I know it's stupid. I am fully aware of that. I just can't do it, right? Like I do laundry so that I have red or black underwear available on Fridays. And this
Okay.
Friday is the first Ghost Pirates game, so I'm very happy that they are not an orange team. I can do green.
Yeah.
Texas doesn't
Oh,
wear green.
nope. Nope. Yeah. But
All
we'll
right,
see though.
y'all.
I'm excited though. Ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
I'm glad one of us is excited because I am not.
It's gonna be stressful. I'm gonna get some more gray hair in this beard for sure, one way or another.
Oh yeah, like I'm glad that I talked Kelsey into going to the Georgia Southern game because it gives me an opportunity to not be stressed out about it all day.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but that's going to do it for this episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. If you haven't already, follow us on social media at nothing.finer.pod on Instagram, at finerpod on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Just look us up. You can find us there. Rate and review the show 5 stars. Help us out quite a bit. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a few comments. Boost that algorithm. I don't really know how it works, but I've told comments help. So do that. Maybe
Yell
like
at
you
us on there. That helps. Anger drives, ads and directing us and your for you stuff. So get pissed off.
yeah, like regardless of what happens this weekend, be upset that I was either entirely right or entirely wrong and yell at me for it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But as always, guys, remember there's nothing finer in the land
Then drunk obnoxious Georgia fan.